This is part 2 of the Salt River paddleboarding adventure. Might have been my last paddleboarding adventure down the Salt River because during the winter it gets closed off. No, it doesn't get closed off. The dam stops putting so much water down, so it doesn't flow, and it kind of just turns into little ponds. So I might go again. It just might be more walking, or the paddleboard won't be going down a river. It will just be floating through ponds or whatever. That's the best way to describe it, right? And in this segment, I got a picture of a bald eagle, which growing up in Gilbert, I didn't see bald eagles. I didn't see ospreys. But in my return to Arizona in my 30s, I have seen ospreys and I've seen bald eagles, which is new to me. I didn't even know that they came into the valley, the East Valley of Arizona near Phoenix. And seeing one in the Salt River is particularly delightful because it's not in a park that I know where it's always going to be, I could not have. I've gone down that river so many times since I was a kid and I never seen one, and I saw one. And I got, according to what I found, I got 106 pictures of it. Now, those are pre-cull, and then I got 22 that I thought were worth a second look at on the computer, and we're going to start looking at them. And this time, I'm going to start from the beginning of time. This literally was the first image in my post-cull group, which means the ones before this were all blurry, probably, right? Really love this image. Its crop is so natural, and the challenge of being on a paddleboard is I'm spinning, I'm having to anchor myself, and so I was really proud that I got this image. And some of the images you're gonna see that they don't look like in the original file that they're gonna work, but this one definitely does. It almost looks. One of the reasons why this image looks so good just out of the file is that there's space by the head where the body's pointing. That's one of the big things about wildlife photography that makes an image feel good, is that if the body's pointing in a direction, that you have a little bit of extra space. So even though it's a little off center, it feels natural. It's like, the bird's gonna go in this direction and there's space for it to go. It's not gonna run into the wall, the imaginary wall of the border. Another thing is this image is a little bright right here. I don't think it's too bright. When we go into the editing phase, I think it will be fine. I am gonna label this a 2, not because I would think it will end as a 2. It'll probably be a 3 or a 4, especially since the subject matter matters to me. The fact it's a bald eagle in the US of A and near my hometown. I would expect this to turn into a higher number. I also like the bouquet behind. And we're gonna go on though. We're gonna look at all the images for this segment first. Right? This is a similar image, less burned. Let's look at the settings. So no setting change. We're shooting at 400 millimeters, 1000 over 1000, 1 over 1250 shutter speed at f6.3 and ISO 400. So not too crazy of an ISO, not too fast. If it was flying, I would want around 2000, but being low to the ground and the dark water is a little darker settings, or a little darker scenery, so I didn't bump the shutter speed. And ironically, that's pretty similar to what I was shooting the horse at too, so I wonder what was going on in my head. Let's see if it changes. Now, you can tell that the composition's changing because my camera's going like this as I float in the water. One thing I remember noticing is this reflection. I noticed the reflection, and then I tilted my camera this way. Not only is this now... So I do both, but anyways, I tilted the camera this way, And that is pretty standard nowadays because of Instagram. You just turn your camera to the side and yeah, it's just, but I was hoping I could get this reflection of the bird and the water, and we'll see. With the crop, there's still a little bit of forgiveness here. It just might not be dead center. And I think this will be okay after the crop. What I'm noticing though is one thing is the eye is very evenly lit. It's not in the burn, and these feathers don't look too hot to me in this image, which is really good. It's going to be an easy edit. I will be able to get the details if the bird is in, not its tail's not being cut off, which I'll be able to check later, right? Now, the other thing we're looking at is comparing the bird looking at me versus the bird looking to the right. This might be a better image to print. So while this is memorable and meaningful for me, this one might be more aesthetically appeasing to someone who doesn't care about the Salt River, right? They just want to see the bald eagle, and they identify with that. The other thing I really love is that this beak is super sharp in this picture, where it's a little hidden by the form, right? You can't really see the beak. And even if you notice between this one, the beak sharp, and then, yeah, the beak's still pretty sharp. It's just the light changes just ever so much. But anyways, so this is a very nice image because the beak is to the side and you can really see that point on it. It's very cool. The bird's looking up, a little hopeful. What is it wondering? I love this little dot of light in it. I definitely know that I'm 90% sure that the feathers won't be chopped in the crop. So I'm going to give this one a 2. This one's going to get a 2 because I love the shadow on the eye. And yeah, so keep going. This one, I am worried it's going to be too far. I'm going to make it a 1 because we have the other ones. Yeah, I think what I need to do, looking at this because of the scenario, I just need to go into the edit. I'm going to go into the crop settings, and I'm going to go to original. And this is because I'm shooting on a crop sensor. So as I worried, the feathers are cut off. So, all right. Now I'm going to hit enter. Now that sets the editing of this, and I'm going to actually take out all of these settings right now because I'm still in my review phase, and I'm going to copy the crop because all of these images down here, as you can see, are shot at the same, they're shot like this with the vertical angle of the camera. So I'm just going to paste that editing setting so that I can actually analyze which one of these deserves to be edited. I loved the light on this, on the face of this, but with the feather on the rear being cut off, that's not going to be the image I want to spend time on. And this just shows, this is how you lose time editing, is you start talking about something that has this little detail that why would you even bother? This is a curse of working with a crop sensor, but such is life. C'est la vie. Is that a stick in it or a feather? Oh, no, it's just a feather. All right. Moving on. So that's a 1. This is not a 1. I'm going to give it a 2. I'm going to give that a 1. That's a 1. I feel like I lost the focus on that image. I'm going to give this a 1. 1. Because I'm pretty sure I have a better image, and there's like subtle things going on. Well, maybe a 2. Have to. This one's a 1. This one's a 1. 1. It feels like it's looking away from me. This is soft. I feel if you look back here at this too, this is just so dead center. I have a hard time believing that this one's gonna be better. Yeah. Okay. And with this cut off right here, it's just not even worth it. And why didn't I do this in the earlier call? Because I was working on my cell phone. And so this is just one of the steps of, like, if you're going to work on your phone to look at the initial images and then get it on the computer, you're going to have to do a second culling. It's just the second culling. It sounds intense, but it's just part of life. This isn't horrible, but because I have a better image, I'm not going to use it. That's not bad. It's a little soft on the eyes. Like, this feels sharper than the face does, which is sad, but it happens. Depth of field issues. It is a wonder. You also have, I would have to crop in because this back is larger than the front, which makes it feel lopsided. I think that I'm going to, I'm gonna stick with these pictures. Yeah, this is it. This one has emotional, like, you could put a quote here. You could put a quote here, and I think that would be a good image, so I am going to keep it. This one is more beautiful to me. The way that the light is hitting the eye, it looks like a portrait. And yeah, this is definitely the more printable image and more appeal to a wider audience for sure, in my opinion. Definitely. So I'm going to bump this to a 3. I'm going to keep this to a 2, and then this is going to be a 2, 2. And let's start editing on this image since it's chronologically first. And I'm going to start with the highlights because they're the first thing bothering me. The general exposure is fine, so I'm not going to mess with that. But the face right here is the highlight of the image. It's the brightest part. Right, you see, we already... That's beautiful. Look at that. That looks so much better already. Oh, that looks so cool. This is so pleasing to look at. Now, this is very cast blue. You see how there's like lots of like shades of blue. I wonder later on I might touch the white balance, but we're just going to do the general edits first. So let's play with the shadows and the contrast. Contrast, I'm not going to want to bump it because there's already a natural, like, you have this black background cutting off from the bird, so layer, right? And then you have the bokeh line, and the bokeh line meets with the rocks, and then you have the bird and then the water. So that I feel like there's already a lot of contrast in this image, but yeah, I don't want too much. Very little amount of contrast added, and it's just to make things pop just a little bit, but too much and they'll start turning into mush. So now shadows. This is gonna brighten up, I'm hoping. And let's see if it brightens up in a way that elevates the image. We're gonna go pretty hard. definitely wait. I would never go to 100. It just isn't worthwhile. It does bring up some of the texture of the feathers, but it looks unnatural. I almost like the gradient look that we had before we messed with the shadows. So if we go back to 0, it hints at it, but as we bump to, I think 20 is going to be the mark. As we get to 20, we now have this beautiful triangle textures of the feathers. Now whites. The whites. We don't want to bump we don't want to bump the whites because they're this right here, and it's already on that edge. Let's go to blacks. Black is going to be right here. This is black, and then this is black. Just look at clipping mask just to look. Yeah. And then we'll mess with blacks here. Interestingly enough, the block is raising the texture in the feathers, which is good. And it's not ruining the image for me. Let's lower. Yeah. So here you can see where the blocks are, or almost are. Where blue is where it's absolutely black now. So as we as we raise these up, we're gonna get a little more definition in that wing. And I do not feel like it's ruining the background. The background has such a beautiful bouquet that even though we're seeing shapes in it, it still looks like a background and it's not distracting too much. I think I will go back, and in masks, I might mask the black here and then lower it so that this gray shape next to the face is not so prominent. Now we got dot, 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 right? We got blacks, shadows, midtones, highlights, whites. Is that the right way? Is that whites or is that whites? Let's see. I think that's highlights. Yeah, and then this is whites. Yeah, okay. Sorry. I could Google it. But anyways, whites. So this will help make the image look, although we already adjusted the whites and the shadows, this makes it so that the transition from the midtones to the whites is gradual. Versus here, if we mess with these, it is just almost on that pillar all the way down. So we're gonna bring those down because we started on a little overexposed. So this is lowering the exposure and the highlights and the whites. Then we're gonna look at blacks. Now, blacks, we brought in texture on the bird. This might be one of those situations where I might be better off doing that as a layer, as a shape mask, and choosing the subject so that the bird's face doesn't get interrupted by this gray shape. To me, that looks pretty good. Let's look at the shadows. So right now, interesting, as you have the shadows elevate, if you have the shadows here, there's almost this blue feeling, like this gray introducing this blue. So as we lower this though, the colors start feeling more brown to me, where they're supposed to be brown. And the next thing I will do definitely is we're going to go into color. And to me, This is outdoors. It was a sunny time of day. This blue cast is too blue. I'm gonna bump up the temperature. And that's too far probably. Maybe. Let's look. And just bump it up. Bump it up. Now this looks like these are in sunlight instead of clouds. And there were no clouds in the sky. I promise you that. It was very uncloudy day. It was an Arizona blue sky day. So definitely more to the yellow. And then I'm not going to do color mixer or pinpoint color. I'm going to look at clear effects. And I do all this texture going on. I definitely want to bump it because to me that it really says the wild, but I don't want it to be crispy. Like that's way too crispy. I want it to be subtle, tasteful, and we'll go to clarity too. And we'll bump it all the way just to look at it. It makes everything so harsh. So, but you know, with this highlight, some people might actually remove clarity and then add some blur, but I'm not one of those people. I like to see the feathers, and adding clarity is adding an edge, a distinct edge to these feathers, even though I didn't do too much. Now, dehaze. I don't think there's much to dehaze in this image. I definitely don't want haze to, that's the opposite of the dehaze, it's the negative side. All right, and then vignette. I don't mind a little one, but I don't want a big one. Oh, another thing I want to consider is this is 16:9. It's ironically, it's pretty perfect, right? You got the bird is in the center third, but then it's leaning on the left line, and then the body's pointing to the right line. That's what you want, and it gives it this like it's alive and about to move, right? And you know where it's gonna fly to. And my only question is this horizon flat? And I am not the best at this. I think that looks pretty good. So a little subtle edit on the horizon, very subtle edits in the color, adding texture. I just denoise because why not at this point? It's just denoise is so powerful and it does make things look so much better. Even though this is shot during the daytime, so I don't think I really need it. Now sharpening. I'm going to be careful with sharpening, not go as high as I usually do, because I find that the feathers will start looking weird. And even though you can do masking, it's going to pick up on those spiky feathers. And so those spiky feathers will always be in the mask. Like they're the last thing to disappear. See how they're there? So they're always going to be in the mask. So I don't really want to over sharpen it and make those look like knives or tiny teeth. They're soft feathers, light feathers maybe is a better word. Voila, that's it. I think that's a pretty good image. I'm gonna make this a 3. I'm proud of it. I love the fact it's looking at me. It did look at me and it was intimidating. One thing I could have done better is I have a you can switch your camera nowadays to digital shutter, and there's some payoff. It's not as fast. You can have rolling shutter, stuff like that, but it's quiet. And I find that when shooting wild animals, that when you're making a noise that goes, you know, your camera shooting super fast, because I shoot as fast as I can to get this image, um, that even cows will look at you from, you know, 30, 50 feet. They will look at you, be disturbed, and walk away. So it is a decision, or especially when I'm on a paddleboard and I'm in a float and I'm experiencing this and I'm shooting as much as I can because the movement's chaotic. It's not like I can put down a tripod. That situation, I might benefit from putting my camera into the digital shutter. And even though I won't get as fast as images, I will still get fast amount of images, but I won't disturb the animal, and getting that extra second or 5 or 10 is worth it. Personally, to me, this image shows an undisturbed animal. This image shows an animal aware of the photographer. Good for storytelling, but not commercially viable. Most people won't want to buy this, I think. Not that I have tons of experience with people buying things. I just when we're capturing nature photography and wildlife, there is this story that we're telling ourselves, and there is a different perspective that you can get, where to me this image looks like the bird is worried about me. Maybe it's assessing me, and I don't really love those images where this horse saw me, it knew I was there, it's looking at me, or maybe it's looking at the food, but it wasn't disturbed by me. This bird's deciding if he needs to run away, which I think as people, we have body language that we read into, and I could be completely wrong, and another person could look at this and say something completely different, but to me, this is not as powerful as an image of this. Now, these edits are so subtle and simple, I think I'm actually going to copy them, because I'm not going to do the crop. I'm not going to do the masking at this point because of all those things I said about this particular image. I would rather spend the time doing that on this picture. This is a more valuable picture to me than this picture for a lot of different reasons. And so I'm going to focus on editing this image. To get a jump start, I'm going to do those I'm going to paste those settings, and then I'm going to adjust from there. Now this turned the image very dark, right? Because the original of this one had a lot of burn right here. This one didn't have that burn. So it's a little too dark for me. We're going to raise the highlights. We're going to lower the contrast. To 0. We're going to raise the exposure, actually. And we need to mess with the crop on this one. We're going to go to 5:7. And if you look at this triangle right here, it's got to be raised on this side. All right, now that's raised. Do we want to crop it so there's more space to the right? That gives it that little bit of space, gives it a little more balance in the idea of it. The other thing I want to do with this one is the masking of the subject. Great. See, Lightroom's getting so good at doing some of these masks that it's almost like, why wouldn't you use it? And I'm going to raise the shadows. And I'm going to raise the blocks. Okay. When I raise the blocks, it's turning the bird gray, and I don't want that. So we'll bump the contrast, which allows that darkness to come back in without it ruining the details that we recovered in the shadows. Let's just bump this all the way just to look at it. Do we get details here that valid? You can see how it turned it gray. We're definitely not going to keep that. Let's pretend we would and just bump that. Yeah. Nope. Yeah. It's going to go. We're going to hit Control Z. We're going to hit Control Z. And I just don't think I'm going to go past 5. It just doesn't give, there's not enough bang for the buck of raising it. And we are going to bump the contrast because I found it made the color deeper. We'll go to saturation. And the bird is very blue. So I'm going to try to get it so that it doesn't look quite as blue, but the feathers don't turn yellow. That's the key, is these, if we bump these up, you see how it just turned yellow, this yellow cast to it. If there was a column of light, like for something that explained why it turned yellow, I would like that, but there's nothing explaining it. So to me, I don't like that. So that's white now. White enough. You can still see some yellow in the feather, but it's white enough. And then let's go to saturation and just bump it a little bit. Very subtle. Boom. That nose looks so sharp. It's so beautiful. That is so cool. That is such an amazing image, isn't it? I'm so happy that I got this picture. It is such a good memory. It was a great trip down the river, and I would definitely add this to my gallery of images. I'm going to copy the settings except for the crop. Yeah, we are going to copy the mask, even though sometimes I find that doesn't work great because it is close enough to this image. Oh yeah. Already see how beautiful that looks. Oh, that's so cool. Wasn't that awesome? Oh, that was so cool. Now, the bird is a little to the left. I'm going to try to fix that with the crop. We're going to go in more on this one. We're also going to fix the tilt. Oh, see. We got an issue All right, I'm going to try to... We're going to try to get more space over here, because the purpose of this image to me is to put words right here. Just something fun to do. That's probably as good as it's gonna get. With the tail being so close to the edge, this is gonna stay a 2. I don't know if I would use it. I think it makes for a good Pinterest thing. The sharpness of the eye is absolutely beautiful in this image. One idea is we're going to save this version. We're going to save this version as vertical, right? Vert. And then we're going to actually crop it for a 1x1. Crop it for a 1x1. Yeah, that's too big of a crop. Of course, I have a crop sensor. I already knew that I wasn't going to be able to do that, but a boy can dream. Let's see if we can do this. My bad. I really need to do better. Okay, so I still feel like it's too deep of a crop. I do wish that this yellow part in the eye and the water on the beak, I wish I had gotten that. Those are details that I wish I had gotten. How could I have gotten them using the equipment I had? Get closer. The other option is I could have switched to manual and then manually adjusted my focus. One thing is I definitely caught on this beak, and now the other thing is I was shooting at f6.3, which is the largest aperture I could shoot at 400mm. So another option would have been to raise the aperture. I could have raised it to f8, f10, somewhere in between there. And the depth of field wouldn't have been so steep. Like, do you see how it's like in focus, out of focus, right? It's just automatic right here. There's this tiny sliver in focus. If I had raised the aperture, let go of the bokeh, and bumped the ISO, then I could possibly have gotten more detail in the beak. Because this point is in focus and that's not. And the honest truth though is I'm working with a camera that's a little dated. If you're buying new cameras, you're probably getting better shots. It's just easier. It's just the way life goes. And I am so proud of this image though. And I am gonna keep it square because the the variety of shapes is pleasing to me. And this is definitely, looking at these two, I'm gonna raise the exposure on this one just a little bit more, just so it matches just a little bit more to, I'm gonna check it actually. Okay, so we're gonna raise it to 40, no, 45, 42, 46. Raise it to 46. And just eyeballing it so that it looks like the same image series. Yeah, this looks like a punch in to a closer view, which is cool. I like that. It's like, what am I thinking? Very cool. Very proud of this. I like it from this perspective where it's like, bird doesn't see you, bird is thinking, bird sees you. That's the mini story, is like, what's going, life is fine. What, let me think about life. Why are you looking at me? Something like that. I love this. This is so cool. I'm so happy that I got this image on a paddleboard, you know, and having this experience. I'm happy to share this with you. I hope that you got something from watching me edit today and that you enjoyed that. I really enjoyed it. I hope that you get excited and you go out and get some of your own images, and you might consider, one takeaway is those things that I said. You might shoot at a faster shutter speed, a more closed down aperture, so an f10, around an f10, and even a higher ISO. Now with the way that AI denoise works, shooting at a higher ISO is totally fine. And I'm sure I was shooting with auto ISO because that's one trick for a flying or moving animal. But just something to consider is closing down the aperture a little bit more so you don't have such a shallow depth of field, especially if you're working with a micro four thirds camera. Very cool. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you like and subscribe.